More than half of the world's children who are out of school are in Nigeria. 10.5 million children are out of school. 60% of those are in north of the country. Insecurity challenges in the country ranging from series of bombings and killings, kidnapping and banditry is one of the major factors preventing numerous children, particularly girls, from having access to basic schools. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Fat Scholars Every Voice Matter. The topic for today's conversation is insecurity and child education in Nigeria. My name is Gideon Oguniye. I am the project lead of Fat Corner Project. Our conversation on the program today will center on the roles that non-governmental organizations, corporate organizations, civil societies, local and international donors can play to address insecurity challenges in Nigeria and its impact on child education. I'm delighted to welcome Mr. Busayo Oluwadamidare Morakinyo as our guest on today's program. Mr. Busayo Oluwadamidare Morakinyo has an unsullied passion for nation building and social impact. He has a background in history and international relations and master's degree in humanitarian and refugee studies. He leads the community engagement at Connected Development, an emerging social accountability network that seeks improved service delivery from duty bearers. As an education advocate and campaigner, he is a strong voice in the ongoing advocacy to expand the universal basic education coverage from 9 years free and quality education to 12 years and an overall of the education curriculum in Nigeria. Busayo believes in civil obligation and citizens' participation is a cruise of development and daily encourages active citizenry through its pan-African engagement development. Welcome to the program, Mr. Busayo.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So let me start with your organization, Connected Development. Can you tell us what Connected Development is all about, the work that the organization has been doing in Nigeria, and as a director for community engagement, what are your roles in the organization?
Yeah, so thanks once again for having me. I think this is very important. What you're doing at the organization, it's very, very important, and I'm very, very privileged to be here. Connected Development is a non-governmental organization. We're big on social accountability. We're big on governance issues. We're big on conflict resolution issues, particularly towards the areas in the Niger Delta. We're also very, very big now on sexual and gender-based violence, that has pervaded the country. But I speak strongly for the social accountability part of the movement, where we have what we call Follow the Money. Follow the Money, is an initiative that seeks to ask the question of where money is coming from, where money is going to, and what the money is used for. And this money we're referring to is public funds, right? So where public funds are coming from, where public funds are going to, and what the money is being used for. And that's what we're doing. We cover all the states in the country, and currently we're in 7 African countries, with increased interest from Pakistan and Haiti. And so that's what we do in a nutshell. We do that in areas of basic health, education, environment, that's water, sanitation, and hygiene. And recently, we're beginning to look into tertiary education also, as well as other government projects that has to connect directly with citizens across the country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Busayo, for that opening address. So let's start with insecurity in the northern part of Nigeria and the other parts of Nigeria, and how it affects child education. In April 2014, Boko Haram stormed the hostel of Chibok Government Secondary School in Chibok in Borno State and abducted almost 300 schoolgirls who were preparing for their final West African Senior Certificate examination. The similar event happened in 2018, where Boko Haram stormed government girls secondary, government girls science and technical college at Dapchi in Yobe State and kidnap another 110 girls. Similar thing happened in December 2020, where over 300 pupils were kidnapped from a school, a boys' secondary boarding school at the outskirts of Kankara in Katsina State, which is also another state in Nigeria. So, looking at this war that is on children, what do you think? How do you think we can stop this war on children in Nigeria? And what are the roles that you think different stakeholders like non-governmental organizations can play to address this problem of insecurity?
Yeah, so the crux of security, and this is without taking hostages at all. The crux of security lies in the government, right? And we must understand that it is the government, that has that strong power according to the constitution. Check. I mean, so when you ask yourself what are the main reasons why we even have a government in the first place, government is supposed to look at the welfare, of the citizenry, supposed to look at the security and the protection of lives and properties of the citizenry. So, I mean, whilst I would say that non-governmental organizations have a role to play, I would say the buck stops at the government, right? So it's the government who has the big hammer that should ensure security across board, across every state in the country, across every geopolitical zone, in the country that shares the same territorial integrity of the entity we call Nigeria. Now, so looking at the data you just reeled out now, and understanding the context to which Boko Haram started, probably in 2012 and escalated in 2013, 2014 and all, you'll discover that, in fact, Boko Haram itself, speaks to the fight against Western education. Now, so you would want to see the trend at which this same element, attack schools, kidnap school children. You want to see how similar, it is to fulfilling the agenda of Boko Haram. In other words, putting that fear in the hearts of people, young people in this part of the country, not to be able to attend schools. And I think that if Boko Haram would want to take stock, I think that they have been able to posture, as against Western education, so much so that they've made more impact in kidnap from the Chibok girls kidnapped to the Dapchi girls kidnapped, then to the new thoughts around the banditry in the northwest, and what we saw in Kankara, in Katsina State, just in December last year. Now, the truth of the matter is, when you look at the data that speaks to the out-of-school children, in fact, from your own data, you spoke about 10 point something million, 10.5 million out-of-school children. I put it to you that we have over 13.5 million out-of-school children. And because of COVID, right, we have more children out of school. I mean, there's a data that speaks to over 20 million out-of-school children, currently in Nigeria. Now, it is not far-fetched from the reality that not just insecurity as it is in the Northeast, but the dilapidating state of the Nigerian educational system, that probably speaks to the fact that we've not been able to evolve an educational system that meets the needs and the demands of development in the Nigerian state, right? So, I mean, you want to probably begin to talk about even the people that are in school. What are the learning outcomes of the people that are in school, which is not even a direct linkage with insecurity, as it were. So when we look at these issues and we want to put the NGOs in the middle of these issues, I think you're giving so much capacity, quote and unquote, to NGOs. No NGO in this world can be able to fix the challenge of insecurity, much more than what the federal government of Nigeria will do.
Yeah, thank you very much. I agree with you absolutely that the buck stops at the table of the government. The primary assignment of any government is to protect lives and properties of its people. So I agree with you that the security challenges has to be addressed by the government, but I think if you look at the statistics, like you said more than 13 million children are out of school between age of 5 and 14 years are out of school in Nigeria. 60% of them in the northern states, and most of them are girls, which are primary targets of Boko Haram brutal hate campaign against Western education. So are you saying that the NGOs doesn't have any role to play? Because this problem looks like it's not just a security problem, it looks like also a cultural problem, because 60% of children that are out of schools are in the northern states of Nigeria. So does that mean that cultural problems also play a part? And do you think non-governmental organizations have roles to play in addressing this problem?
Now, quite sincerely, I understand you. I hear you loudly. Culture is a very, very big factor. But sincerely, to the level to which we've gotten to, if we want to be very sincere with ourselves, right? A whole lot of NGOs have been able to get into this core northern communities, emphasizing on the need for girl child education, right? I mean, it was so big at a point that the then Emir of Kanu, Malam Sanusi, was very big on girl child education, which is one of the successes of, NGOs speaking to the fact that, hey, we must educate rapidly, the North. We must educate rapidly Nigeria. We must educate even more rapidly the girl child, because when you train the girl child in school, you're obviously training a generation, because the children in the core northern perspective, when it comes to culture, grow up with the mothers, right? And if the mothers aren't educated, there's nothing they are going to pass to the children. You understand? Now, a whole lot of NGOs have done a whole lot of stuff. But I keep saying, right, at the last count, I mean, from the Corporate Affairs Commission, we had about close to 90,000 registered NGOs in Nigeria. Over 90,000 NGOs, registered NGOs in Nigeria. I would put it to you and our listeners today that if you put the entire programming of all of these NGOs together and say, guys, don't do any work again, just focus on education, right? Just focus on education. I put it to you that these over 90,000 NGOs cannot do what a state government can do, right? I put it to you that way. And let's even look at it contextually, right? Now, when it comes to basic education, unfortunately, basic education is on the concurrent list of the government, right? So what it means is the federal government, the state government, and even the local government has a role to play, in formulating policies for education. Now, that is what a government can do. What NGOs can do is to influence such policies. But NGOs do not have the power to activate such policies, right? It behoves on the state houses of assembly, you understand, and the National Assembly, to formulate those policies and make those policies not just remain policies, but become law, to be binding on the state. You understand? An NGO, no matter how powerful you are, will not be able to switch a policy to become a law. It has to go through the legislative process. You understand what I'm trying to say? Now, so if you look at the education policy in Nigeria today, you would be disappointed to see that not so much has changed from the time when you, doctor, were in primary school with what is obtainable currently. NGOs do not have such powers, to change, the curriculum. The only thing they can do is to advocate and try to influence and try to lobby, and try to call out government and all, right? So these issues are big, but the buck stops with the government. Now, when you talk about funding education also, put all these organizations together, these organizations will not be able to do what a state government that is serious about education will do. You understand? Because I mean, human capacity development should be the core of every society. And at the forefront of human capacity development is education. The last time Bill Gates was in Nigeria, Bill Gates hammered on the same thing, the need for us to get people massively educated, because the dangers of non-education is far worse than the dangers of education. Now, the government can run away everywhere and say, we're spending 30% of our annual budget on capital projects. I tell you the truth, spend 90% of your budget on capital projects. If you do not educate the Nigerian child, that Nigerian child is going to grow up and destroy those facilities you think you're putting in place.
Yeah, thank you very much for that contribution. I agree with you that the government has a whole lot of roles to play in this, and NGOs can only advocate and can only put pressure on the government. Maybe what you should also be looking at is advocacy in terms of fixing the politics so that we get the best set of people to be operators of government in Nigeria. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's very, very important. Now, I tell you what, when you have people get into politics or get into government offices without foresight, without understanding the context, without understanding the severity of the gaps, of their actions and inactions, then what you have is a Nigerian situation, and I tell you the truth. Now, look at the educational sector since the current government came into power. I'm talking about the Buhari administration. We have a minister of education who is a journalist. I'm not hating on journalists, but the guy does not clearly understand what education is speaking. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't. Now look at. Let's take a social audit on the actions or the inactions of the education minister. That's the number one person who is supposed to be pushing educational policies. Guy doesn't know jack. The guy doesn't do anything. The guy just a third function and calls himself the minister. And I say this without fear of favor. You understand? Now, when you get people who do not know jack about a system to get into that system, they can't do anything. It's clear. What we'll just have is politics. What we'll just have is lip service. When the lockdown started, I was expecting Nigerians to begin to think. I'm talking about the people in government to begin to think, where did we actually miss it? How can we have children not going to school? What I heard from the government in terms of a policy direction was that NTA they were going to be teaching children through NTA and radio. And I asked myself, how many low income, obviously you know that the poverty margin in Nigeria, we have over 100 million people below the poverty line, in Nigeria. How many of those people would have a TV in their house? How many of them have access to power in their house to turn on the TV, right? How many of those people have access to the internet, to be able to go online and self-study or attend the Zoom class or whatever? Now, when you begin to look at the way the people in government think, you would know that we have a big issue, and until we begin to fix the politics that gets people into office, for us to get the right kind of people in the office, in these offices, who have foresight and who knows where the world is going to, and who can align themselves, align policies, align laws, to begin to fix the gaps we currently have, we're just going to keep going round and round and round in circles. And I tell you the truth, the few who have the access to, these basic services, from their hard work, would keep taking their children to private schools where they can afford to come on Zoom to learn. Kids have been learning, but kids in government schools have not been learning. So we sincerely, and maybe this would bring us to the point where we begin to talk about active citizenship. You understand? Because the reason why these issues are festering is because the people do not understand the damages the system has done to them. You understand? Now, there's no level playground. You cannot compare yourself, for example, to an average person who is in Nigeria. You can't compare yourself. You understand? Even those of us who feel we're elites in terms of, because we've probably gone through the university or probably have a second degree, and all. We cannot compete favorably with people who grew up outside this country and who from way back, have the kind of knowledge and exposure some of us are trying to get now, right? And this is those of us who can even speak English. Now take this below the people who are below the poverty line, and see how that even in a globalized world, those kids will not be able to compete with their contemporaries, that are outside of this country. Now, citizens, if we understand this fact, I believe no citizen would sleep comfortably with his two eyes closed.
I totally agree with you. The government has a lot of role to play, and unfortunately, operators of governments in Nigeria are not doing enough. So we citizens, we need to continue to advocate and continue to put pressure on government to do their to do their roles. There's another aspect that I want us to talk about children who have been victims of abduction, of rape in communities that are facing armed conflict in Nigeria. I saw the transcript of an interview with BBC of a puppy at the school in Dapchi in Yobe State, where 110 girls were abducted by Boko Haram terrorists. And she described the horror she witnessed. In her words, she says, no matter what security is put in place, I honestly don't think I can go back to these schools. I have a lot of friends who went missing. At first, I couldn't go to sleep. I was very much shaken, but I feel better now. So this is the traumatic experience of one of the children that have witnessed disruptions to their normal lives as a result of Boko Haram activities in their communities. And we have so many children that are facing similar situation today, abduction. Some of them have been forced into marriage before they were rescued. Some of them have been raped so many times. So do you think the government is doing enough in terms of reintegrating these children back into their communities? And if the government is not doing enough, what do you think we can be doing as stakeholders, as NGOs, as civil societies, as corporate organizations to assist the government in reintegrating these victims of violence back into their communities?
Now, when you talk about armed conflict, and I mean, the central idea of terrorism is to create fear, right? Now, the transcript of the interview of that girl child from Dapchi, it just shows places an emphasis on the fact that this is real. I mean, the trauma is real. It's real, and I mean, I did a little about humanitarian and refugee studies. I mean, I have a master's degree in that, and I can tell you that psychologically, those kids would perpetually be in the state of post-traumatic stress disorder. You understand? And I would understand with those kind of kids if they said they are not going to schools again. You understand? Because of the kind of trauma. I mean, you and I that are speaking over this call now, if we go through half of what those kids have gone through, would probably be discombobulated for a very long time, right? And sincerely, when it comes to management of anything in this country, I am number one skeptical, because the truth of the matter is we don't have measures to measure, the impact of the interventions we do. I know that finding durable solutions to internal displacements, for example, talks about rehabilitation, talks about resettlement, right? Let's look at rehabilitation. Now, it is even some people who have gone through this level of trauma will tell you they cannot even live in that same community because it reminds them, it brings a whole lot of memories to them. Their friends, their relatives, their family members may have been killed. How do you want me to come back to that same community and begin to live my life again? It wouldn't work. So long as that person is in that community, the person is mentally unstable. So you may have to move that person and resettle that person in a better space, so that the person's psychology can get better. Now, I want you to, I mean, you are a researcher, Doc. Now, maybe we should take another social audit, and see other government interventions that are not even geared towards the internal displacement or the conflict or the terrorism we experience in Nigeria. Look at Vision 2020, for example, right? We had a whole lot of time from 2000 to get to 2020, right? Vision 2020 crumbled right before our eyes. The same thing with the Millennium Development Goals. In fact, the SDGs is coming to an end in 2030. Nigeria has failed woefully on the SDGs, right? Now, if we take a social audit on all of these big international dimension, visions we have and discover that we have failed, how then do we begin to say that, post-traumatic stress or helping the psychology of people who have experienced various levels of brutality has been attended to. We must give kudos to international organizations. I mean, I'm talking about the UNHCR, I'm talking about the Norwegian Refugee Council, I'm talking about those amazing guys. I work in the Northeast. I've been to the epicenter, I've been to Borno so many times. I've been to the front lines of Sambisa, you know, from the Yobe axis. You know, I've been to, in fact, I've stayed in Yola for 10 days, full back to back, studying the realities of internal displacement in the country. I've lived in IDP camps, and I tell you the truth. Take out the international organizations and the NGO, everything would crumble like a pack of cards. You understand? Now, in fact, currently we're following a trail. We're following a trail under Follow the Money that wants to even evaluate the amount that has come in. I mean, the UN OCHA has voted in over 22 million dollars, right? $22 million, you know, for the Northeast. Now we're following up a trail. I mean, in the next few months, you know, these reports are going to come out on how that fund has been expended. And I also want you to know that we have the Victim Support Fund. I also want you to know that we have now we have the Northeast Development Commission, right? Now we have the national, we used to have the National Commission for Migrant Refugees and Internal Displaced Persons. Now we also have, you know, what is it called? A humanitarian ministry. You understand? Then there's a PCNI. You understand? Somewhere. Now, a whole lot of these guys have gotten various levels of fund, but we have not yet been able to put side by side the fundings that has been received and the improvement of life of the people, you know, that have experienced the brutalities of Boko Haram. Now, so what I'm trying to say is this thing is quite complex. And when it comes to anything that has to do with money in the Nigerian state, I don't trust the government. You understand? So maybe we should begin to look at how to audit the work government has claimed to have done, you know, from 2015 or say 2013, you know, to 2021, you know, in the Northeast, to see how that people, I mean, obviously, you probably see how it seemed like just recently, towards the end of last year, it seemed like Boko Haram was getting more grounds. It seemed like they were getting more power. And for me, I just feel it's part of the failures of government. If we cannot pause and take a social audit, probably a real monitoring and evaluation, and ask ourselves, what have we done? How much have we invested? What is the result we have gotten? If we have not gotten as much result, we need to change, you know, change the processes. You know, it is insanity to do the same thing the same way and be expecting a different result. So what I'm going to say as a solution is, hey, guys, we need to pause and ask ourselves, how have we fared? How have we been able to utilize the funds that has come in? If we can be truthful to ourselves and say we've not achieved so much, can we now begin to rejig the system and see how we can be able to get optimal value and also get value for money, so that, you know, Kankara would not happen again, so that Dapchi would not happen again, so that Chibok would not happen again. Yesterday we just celebrated, you know, the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, and it was nostalgic for me. We've lost a whole lot of people, you know, trying to fight insurgencies, trying to fight insecurities, and from 2012, you know, till now, these things are still festering, and we still have young people dying. We have more children out of school, you know, and it's crazy. It means that something is missing. Unfortunately, what we can do as citizens is to keep talking, keep engaging. What NGOs and civil societies can do is to keep engaging government, but the bulk again stops with the government to be able to say, hey, guys, let's take a break and analyze this situation critically. If it's not working, if everything we've done is not working, how can we get it to work again?
Yeah, I will take that as your parting statement, that if this system is not working, how can we get it to work again? And I hope that the non-governmental organizations in the country, civil societies, will start to come together to see how we can audit activities of government in Nigeria, to see that the funding they receive to tackle all these humanitarian crises, those funding are well appropriated and well used to solve the problem. Thank you very much, Mr. Busayo, for sharing your thoughts with us on the program today. I hope that you will honor this invitation the next time we call upon you. Thank you very much.
I'm just a call away. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you very much.
And thanks to all our viewers at home. Meet us again next week for another edition of Every Voice Matter. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.